Spotify just made a move that could change how you discover music forever, and most listeners have no idea it is coming. Starting in mid-September, you are going to start seeing a brand new label pop up on artist profiles across Spotify. It is called the AI Persona Badge, and it exists for one simple reason: to tell you when the artist you are listening to is not actually a real human being. If that sentence made you pause, good, because it should. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because I'm going to break down exactly what this badge is, how Spotify decides who gets it, what happens to an artist once they are labeled, and why this whole thing is a much bigger deal than a simple little icon on a profile page. By the end of this video, you will understand why some artists are furious, why some listeners are relieved, and why this might be the first real crack in the wall of AI-generated content flooding every platform you use. Let us start with the basics. Spotify announced this change on August 11th, and the plan is simple on the surface. Artist profiles that Spotify determines to be AI-generated identities will now carry a visible AI persona badge. This is not a badge for songs that used AI production tools somewhere in the process. Spotify has other tools for that, like AI credits and song DNA, which explain how track was actually made. This badge is different. It is entirely about identity. It is about whether the face, the name, and the story behind an artist profile represents an actual living person or a synthetic character built to look and feel human. So how does an artist actually end up with this badge? There are two paths. The first is self-disclosure. Starting right now, artists can go into Spotify for Artists and voluntarily mark themselves as an AI persona. Spotify is hoping creators will be upfront about it, since transparency builds trust with fans. But here is the part that matters most. Spotify is not going to just take people at their word. The second path is Spotify's own review process. Their team will actively examine artist profiles, looking at things like profile photos, header images, and album artwork to determine whether a persona appears to be a photorealistic AI-generated identity. If they believe it is, they can apply the badge themselves, even if the artist never said a word about it. Now, before you imagine Spotify slapping this label on thousands of accounts overnight, know that they are being deliberate about the rollout. Every single badge that Spotify applies through its own review is checked by a human being before it goes live, specifically to avoid false positives and prevent real independent artists from getting wrongly flagged. And they are not starting with everyone at once either. Spotify says it will begin with artists who have already crossed certain audience thresholds, meaning the more popular an AI persona already is, the sooner it gets reviewed. The logic here is pretty smart actually. Focus first on the profiles that the most listeners are actually going to encounter. If an artist gets flagged by Spotify's review team rather than self-disclosing, they are not just going to wake up one day blindsided. Spotify says it will notify them directly and give them a real opportunity to either confirm the label or appeal the decision if they believe it was applied unfairly. So there's at least some due process built into this system, which honestly a lot of people did not expect from a platform this size. Here is where things get really interesting though, and this is the part you need to understand if you are an artist, a fan, or just someone who cares about where the music industry is heading. Once a profile carries the AI persona badge, Spotify will exclude that artist from its editorial and algorithmic recommendations by default. Think about what that actually means. No more chances of that AI persona showing up in your Discover Weekly. No more surprise placements on official mood playlists. No more algorithmic push into new listeners' ears. The only way people hear that artist going forward is if they already follow them directly. In an industry where algorithmic discovery is basically everything, that is not a small slap on the wrist. That is a serious limitation on how far an AI-generated artist can grow. And this did not come out of nowhere. Spotify is responding to a real and rapidly growing problem. Competitor platform Deezer reported that back in June, AI-generated tracks accounted for more than half of all new daily uploads to their service. Half. Streaming platforms are being flooded with synthetic music and synthetic artist identities faster than most listeners even realize, and a lot of people have been quietly frustrated finding out that an artist they liked, whose face they recognized, whose story they felt connected to, was never a real person at all. Spotify actually said this directly in their announcement, stating that listeners have been clear they do not like discovering an artist profile that seemed human, only to learn later that the persona was AI-generated the whole time. Now I want to be fair here and point out something Spotify has been careful to clarify. This badge is not a judgment on whether AI was used to help make a song. Plenty of legitimate human artists use AI tools somewhere in their creative process, whether that is mixing, mastering, or even generating certain sounds. Spotify says that is a completely different conversation, and that is what tools like AI credits already cover. This new badge is laser focused on one specific question. Is the public-facing identity of this artist an actual human being, yes or no? That distinction is going to matter a lot as this debate continues to unfold. So what does this mean going forward? If you are a listener, You are about to get a lot more transparency about who you are actually listening to, whether you asked for it or not. If you are an independent artist experimenting with AI as part of your workflow, but you yourself are a real person with a real face and a real story, this badge should not affect you at all. But if you are running a fully synthetic AI persona and hoping to quietly ride the algorithm into millions of streams, that path just got a whole lot harder starting in mid-September. This is very likely just the beginning. Other platforms are watching closely. And if this approach actually works for Spotify, do not be surprised if Apple Music, YouTube Music, and others start rolling out something similar within the next year. The music industry is at a genuine turning point, right?